nice article in the Managing Madrid blog. Wonderful lads that do a great job there. And worth reading about that man there. Karim Benzema needs to rest, and the numbers reveal why.
Times ended up almost looking like a 6-3-1. Some very good writing about that on the Managing Madrid website. First rate podcast as well. Of course, Fede Valverde was a huge part of the equation.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Managing Madrid podcast. Brief introduction for this episode of The Real Deal is Conte is back. And, last episode was really well received. We wanted to get more into the different coaches in Europe. I feel like we haven't really looked at the larger trends of what's going on. And with Guardiola struggling, Carlo ups and downs, it's a lot of flux. Maybe the big names of coaching are changing. Maybe we're seeing new innovators on the scene. We're going to talk about that and more on this episode of The Real Deal. Welcome back, Ardit, to the episode.
Sorry. It's a real pleasure to be back again. I just wanted to thank everybody on the comment section to begin with for the massive support. That episode was really fun, and I'm happy to be back. Thank you again for the opportunity.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Get it rolling.
Yeah, thanks for coming and giving us insight. So, just for the listeners of The Real Deal, we want to give you the best analysis. And every fan has some sort of theory of football when they go out there. And it's crazy how many different perspectives you can get when you go talk to different people. And football is such a closed, it's a closed door thing where maybe only a few people ever get the chance to go and test their ideas on the big stage. But a lot of people have ideas. And you're one of the guests who's coming and infusing us with new ideas. I just want to hear more from you and really appreciate what you brought the last episode.
Appreciate the words a lot.
Quick introduction for the audience now, and then I want to leave the stage to you. But last episode, we went over different coaches who could, when Carlo was in a bad moment, and we went over coaches we thought could replace him. We went over the usual suspects, Alonso, Zidane, and then talked a little bit about Iraola, Michel from left field, and we thought we could continue that episode now and get into all the coaches, the major ones in Europe, what trends they're going at, which ones might fit us in the future, things of that nature. Any additional thoughts you'd say? Anything has changed for you on Alonso? Last episode, you're saying he relies on the physicality of his central players and wide combinations to progress a lot. He doesn't always progress centrally through the block. Brief update.
Hasn't really changed much. As I said in the last episode, I don't really look at the results. They're getting their results now, but their football has improved, I guess, as their intensity has upped, which is very normal. But I haven't really seen a big change from the Leverkusen that I've seen over the past year and a half, to be honest, to say that there's been a major change in Alonso's style or he's been beyond reactive with his approach. Do I think he's fixed some things? He has, but ultimately I think that he's still falling back into what works, which I appreciate, but I'm not seeing too big of a change from Leverkusen itself. Relentless attacking team, good at defending, closing the spaces, but still, again, very, very intense. If some of you follow me on Twitter, you already know that I'm not the biggest fan of that type of football, of reliance over there. It's been one of my major issues, even with our coach Ancelotti now, where we're having to run a lot. But, comparing Alonso to Ancelotti wouldn't be really fair because Alonso's is way more structured. The running has a lot more purpose. But what I mean is just on the general spectrum, I genuinely believe that Alonso still needs to do some changes with the way how his team plays on a ball rather than off the ball. Off the ball, they are definitely one of the top sides in Europe, but on the ball, they leave a lot to be desired. And as I pointed out on the last episode, still Alonso is still going with that dynamic midfield where it's full of legs, and that's why Robert Andrich is back on the team and doesn't seem that he's going to leave it anytime soon.
I'm seeing that Garcia hasn't played like the last 3 games. They beat Inter 1-0. He plays 1 minute. They beat Augsburg 2-0, 4 minutes. 5-1 win against Freiburg, 11 minutes. He played 90 in a win against St. Pauli, but he's played 3 90s since like the start of October, full 90s. He's hard.
Yeah, basically when they were on that bad run. I just don't think that Alonso is capable of fitting Aleix on this current team. Maybe in a different team he would be able to, but on the current team with the current profiles, I just don't think that Alonso can, or maybe he's not willing to change the formula that's working for him because he's back on the title race. So why would he normally?
Yeah.
Sacrifice everything for one player.
And it does seem like the games where he's playing heavy minutes, they're like they won 2-1 when he played 90 against St. Pauli.
Yeah.
68 minutes in a 5-2 win against Heidenheim. 72 minutes in the 4-0 loss to Liverpool at home. And it seems like the weaker teams are ones where he's played heavy minutes. He played 90 in a draw against Brest. It hasn't been the best. They haven't been like dominating other teams when he's on the pitch, huh?
Yeah, I don't think it was the right move for either party, if I'm being honest. I think that Leverkusen could have improved on Andre to bring somebody of the same technical level on higher technical levels, with the same physical levels. I think that they should have done that, but of course it's easy for me to talk now in hindsight. But they still have Andre there. Granit Xhaka is doing wonders for them. Again, another top season. Florian Wirtz, excellent player. And one thing that I'll give it to Alonso is the fact that he's not overly reliant on these offensive players to actually consistently perform for him to get results. What he's doing right now with Patrick Schick is really incredible. I watched the last game, incredible game. Teaching him perfectly how to move into the pocket because I like that. But for the most part, as I said again, if you want to be a more dominant on the ball side of the things, which is a big complaint on the Madrid side, Alonso might not be your coach for that. At least with Leverkusen being as the baseline of Alonso as a coach. Because again, we have to keep reminding ourselves that Alonso's sample size is still very small. It's totally. Very hard. It's very hard to gauge him, really, whether he's one of the best or he's middle of the park where I currently have him, or maybe he might just be he just knows how to do what he's doing with Leverkusen. We really don't know that before the sample keeps increasing and the team keeps on changing.
Totally. So we went over Iraola, Michel, and Zidane. We're gonna skip them for now because I don't think Zidane could be the coach. We talked about him already. Iraola is doing a great job. I don't know what more needs to be said.
He turned it around with Bournemouth.
And then Michel is Michel. Well,
his Girona are still pretty good, I would say.
Yes, they are
considering where the player quality is right now in comparison to last year. He's still doing relatively the same job. It's just that player quality matters a lot, and the team's quality has just massively decreased in every area, really. And there are some players that are underperforming too, which I don't think is a coaching problem. I just think that it's more of like age with the guys of David Lopez. Abel Ruiz is their number 9. Not really, never made sense, that signing to me. But yeah, like that would be something if we want to touch upon Michel. I think he's as good as he was last season, if not better, considering what he's having to go through, competing in Champions League.
Do you think the Champions League results are justifiable, or you think he's been naive there, the way they're playing?
It's been a little bit naive, but also let's keep in mind it was just a 1-0 loss to Liverpool at home last time out. If I remember it correctly, Liverpool should be their last game, right?
Yeah, they played Liverpool.
Pretty sure. Yeah. And they kept Liverpool on their toes. So it was a pretty decent performance. If we're going by the standard rule of Liverpool currently being the best team in the world, if we're going by that rule,
They also
at
lost.
least,
They lost to SK Sturm Graz. I don't even know which league they play.
yeah,
what,
Sturm
what
Graz.
is an SK?
Yeah, yeah.
And then
Yeah, but that game was just like a lot of mistakes were happening because I watched that game. It's 4-3, right?
no 1-0. They lost to Sturm
Oh,
Graz.
1-0. Okay, which one did they lose?
PSV
4-3?
they lost 4-0, and then they lost 2-0 to. They beat Slovan Bratislava 2-0. Then
Yeah.
they lost 3-2 to Feyenoord in a thriller.
Oh, Feyenoord game is the one where I wanted to go because I watched that. They, in my opinion, should have won that game. In my opinion, because they were the better team.
That makes
across
sense.
the 90 minutes.
Mourinho stole the win. He's there, right? He's
Yeah.
at Feyenoord. That's the one he's at. Yeah.
No, Fenerbahce.
Fenerbahce.
Mourinho's at Fenerbahce. Yeah, Feyenoord is
Feyenoord is
Feyenoord, the Netherlands team. A
yes,
team from Netherlands, Dutch league, Eredivisie. Yeah.
I confuse those teams sometimes. I'm always paying attention.
Yeah. Don't worry. Too many out there, especially with this new version of European football. It's insane how much football there's been.
It is. There are too many teams, and like, yeah. I mean, if I don't know which league you play in, why are you in the Champions League? Like, you're not winning the title.
Yeah.
I'm kind of confused. All right.
I don't know about this new version, to be honest, but yeah.
I think that's good on Michel. Now, before we go on our big roundtable of Arteta, Flick, Kompany, Gasperini, let's just do a brief update on what you think Ancelotti is doing better since last time. I will just list a few things I've seen so we don't repeat them. But the main thing is, like, I've been hyper-focused on Mbappe because it's very rare for a player who's so good at getting open with such easy chances that he gets to be in such a prolonged funk. Like, they're not asking him to do more than finish. And as we've seen, eventually things work out. Like, he gave an interview, scored some goals, touch is looking faster, ball is being released faster. I think with one thing to sympathize with Carlo, if Mbappe was just this version that we saw the last 2 weeks since Bilbao, I don't know if we would have had these conversations about Carlo this early in the season. We would not have lost 4-0. So just that big caveat. So Mbappe is looking better. Carlo's worked with him, and like,
I mean, there's chemistry being built. There's chemistry, which obviously needed time. It's a new role. I don't want to go into the tangent of like new role, new league, all of that. I don't fully agree with the fact that if you're moving to a new league, suddenly you're going to be a completely different player. It's not like Mbappe was facing low blocks for the first time in his life.
No.
In France.
I think
he was having that weekly.
Maybe the degree of the execution slightly surprised him. But if he was this version, he would still have been scoring those weeks.
Yeah, but
if he was this healthy,
I think it's been 2.5 years of the guy without a preseason. So people just never gave him the time to begin with, like the time to adapt physically, first and foremost, let alone the mental aspect. Keep in mind, we have been waiting for this guy for 8 years now?
Yeah.
I'm going to say. Mm-hmm. So you can imagine the pressure. And I think the pressure got to him, to be honest. I do think that the pressure got to him, but now he looks released. Physically, he looks sharper, missed the last 2 international breaks, which were crucial for us, at the very least. Now I just want to see that Mbappe and Jude connection, because that's still really lacking. I don't like that.
Yeah, it seems like Mbappe is not connected to anyone but maybe Vinny, because Vinny is connected to everyone.
Yeah, Vinny is Vinny is the heart of the team by technicalities when it comes to attacking.
Brahim as well.
Because Brahim moves a lot, especially into the pockets.
Mm-hmm.
So it's those players, right? But when it comes to Jude and Mbappe timing Jude runs, it's been completely off. It's been a problem since the first game of the season, even though I know that this sounds weird considering that Mbappe's first goal in Madrid shirt was assisted by Jude. I don't think that they have the timing of one another there yet. Vini, Mbappe didn't have a problem. As we said, Mbappe would have had a lot more goals, and Vini would have had more assists if his finishing was better. But of course, physical problems, uh, mental struggles, all of that pressure on him. The whole France was trying to pretty much diminish everything that Mbappe has achieved. It was a lot going on for him, but it seems that he probably, as he said yesterday, I think, he kind of sat down with himself and just spoke to release himself that he has to do it, which I really appreciate as a sports fan. So
For
we're
sure.
seeing a better version. I don't think we're seeing the best version, but we're seeing the better version. I think that the best version is yet to come. Like
For
those
sure.
are my standards for him, at the very least.
For sure. I think we maybe have seen glimpses of what the best version would look
Glimpse,
like.
yeah.
But
That would be the best way to put it. It's just glimpses of what Mbappe can be like. For example, on the second, Rodrigo scored the third goal last night, right? Yesterday, technically, against Sevilla.
yes.
Mbappe's movement was top notch to
Mhm.
release Rodrigo. It goes to show where Mbappe is as a footballer. Because I
Yeah.
know that a lot of things, apologies if you heard that. I know that a lot of things, such as he's selfish, he's this, he's that, it's not really true when it comes to end all be all. Because that Rodrigo goal just doesn't happen if Mbappe doesn't move where he moved. And Mbappe was always my Benzema replacement, and that's why I think Benzema and Mbappe didn't work all that well for France. Ultimately, same tendencies when they are on a pitch. Execution is different between them two, but they have a lot of similarities and tendencies. I know that a lot of people like to compare Mbappe to Cristiano. I don't really see it all that much. I see more of like a Benzema type of player where there was a lot of worry about what when his legs are gone, when the speed is gone. I just think that he's just gonna have that Benzema level of maturity on the pitch, and that's why I always wanted him to be the number 9. Because ultimately, I never thought that he has everything that it takes to be like the best winger in the world. I don't think that his technique really as a winger allows him to do that. He doesn't have that agility of somebody like Vinicius, for example, to be able to glide past players without any problem. Therefore, you wanted him on the inside, and best way to have him on the inside on the receiving end would be a more like Benzema style of role where he's not a proper 9-9. He's not a Robert Lewandowski or Erling Haaland, but he's still gonna be operating in on the edge, gonna move into the wide spaces to receive, and just put his teammates in. And this has been my outlook on Mbappe for like 2 years now, and I'll stick by that until I see that it's not gonna work.
I don't
But for
think
now,
he's I don't think he's ever going to be a pure 9, but I do agree that he has to. I don't think his combination play is as good as Benzema's. Is the thing.
yeah, maybe we could talk on the technique side of it there, but I think that the tendencies remain similar on the way how he tries to bring the players in. You can look at every game and you can see that when he receives the ball, he's always on the outlook for that pass that adds an extra pass. I don't know how to explain it better because Mbappe's passes are more often than not never straightforward. He never tries to break the line. He tries to bring another player in just so more players can attack, which is very Benzema-esque because it brings the attack to another level of fluidity. So as I said, now he's gonna need to be on tandem with Jude, and this team is gonna keep on scoring even more goals without any problem.
So you think most of it is So you think most of the work has just been Carlo figuring out the offensive chemistry in recent weeks?
Yeah, and also just not using Jude Bellingham on Jordan Henderson type of role. Really, I'm gonna be honest, because keeping Ancelotti accountable for some of the things that he did earlier on the season is completely fair. Like you go into an El Clasico with Bellingham playing on a role like Jude, on a role like Jordan Henderson. That's completely unfair. That's taken away from all of his talent. That's taken away one of your top 3 best players. It's just mismanagement. Still, I stand by the idea that El Clasico result, it was a 50-50 that just...
I think that game could have worked. I think the problem was the Jude role in most games. I actually think that was one of the few where it worked, because what it did was vertically 2 left footers on the left, 2 right footers on the right. Jude, Carvajal, Camavinga, left back. It gave us a shuttling presence. And I think that's why Barcelona needed Mbappe to be like, that's why Mbappe got open in the first place. Because what we were doing was, if you go look at all the passes he was offside, are like the playmaker is wide open. Mbappe has time to point to him. Like, they have ages. And it's because Barcelona pressed very vertically. And I think having Jude and Camavinga, just that game. But I think 99% of the games where he played Jude deep at the start of the season were bad, no question.
Yeah, it's not only playing Jude deep. I don't have a problem if you play Jude deep, but not to that role of deep. Normally, I would have switched the roles probably on the ball of Valverde and Bellingham. If you're gonna decide to keep one of them deep, then it should be Bellingham as the main receiver and not Valverde, because Bellingham's radius of turning is so much better, where it's uncomparable. If you had, let's say, 7 chances to score, if Jude was seeing more of the ball, then you would have had probably double that at bare minimum. So those were my problems, my trigger points with somebody like with Ancelotti at the start. But now it seems more back to the basics type of thing, where he just wants offensive chemistry. He just wants those players to do well. I think we should give him credit for the introduction of Dani Ceballos. I still don't know how that's going to look like a month from now, if I'm being honest. But Ceballos has been really good in recent weeks. So not a player that I like, but he's just worked to kind of hide the flaws of Valverde. The flaws of Valverde are there. People maybe are refusing to see them. I don't know. But I don't like Valverde when he's a lone pivot. I can't wait until he's out of there. I need Valverde to just play just slightly higher, not between the lines, because he's not good at doing that, but higher, just so we get those more of these opportunities for him to pass the ball, to move into the offensive areas better. I don't want to see him as limited as he is on the current role, and I don't think he's suited for that role either. So one way or another, Ancelotti is going to have to figure that out, either by dropping Ceballos, sadly, for Camavinga to go back in midfield, and Valverde gets a role higher up, which again would mean Jude is going to have to drop a bit deeper. But as Mbappe keeps building chemistry, keeps becoming better and sharper, then Mbappe should be able to fill those voids that Jude would leave offensively, and Vini and Rodrigo should be able to be at optimal levels too. Of course, this is just hopes that everybody is fit, healthy, and how the team would look like. I think that at this point I've made peace with the fact that Tchouaméni is going to be a center back for the rest of the season.
I don't think he has it over Ceballos or Camavinga either. He just hasn't been as good. Like, Ceballos is guaranteeing 90 to 100 touches now in that role, and like some level of composure, even if he's maybe not as like imposing a defender good enough. And then Modric offers much more ball security. Camavinga offers everything Tchouaméni does, with like honestly better range of like angles he can receive in, better dribbling. Tchouaméni, the problem is when like he's not ever controlling games at the level he should be in that role. He hasn't for Real Madrid for a while.
For me, I think that Tchouaméni is a bit more coaching reliant than majority of these other players. But I also still think that in terms of like the midfield not being as wide open as we see, you need Tchouaméni there. I don't think any of these players can cover even half of what Tchouaméni does. So it's basically...
I do think Camavinga might be the exception.
I mean, Camavinga, if we're going into the dual section of it, but in terms of like reading the play, reading the attacks, Tchouaméni is just much better at intercepting the ball.
The problem is he hasn't been doing that. He's been falling asleep so many times. Like he'll have
but that's also due to just how systematically weak the team was for the most part, how easily it was falling apart. Has he been caught asleep? Yes. Do I keep him accountable for that? I would say yes. But I'm one of these guys that's just not ride or die by Tchouaméni, but I think that unless Camavinga's positioning, especially as a number 6, improves massively, I still think that Tchouaméni is the player for that role.
I do think he's the best
ultimately.
6. I think in the
Yeah.
double pivot, I do think the gap between Tchouaméni as a 6 and whatever setup, any setup with him, and the Cama Fede double pivot, I don't think the returns have been better. That's the only thing. Or if they are,
Oh yeah.
or in many cases, Tchouaméni is great where you start the first hour with him, but when like Camavinga usually ends up being on the pitch when we're like beating the opponent or when we're taking the actions that let us win the game.
Yeah.
He helps you string together momentum more, and but he's just transcendent. We haven't seen
he's more mobile. He's more mobile as a player.
Yes,
therefore
that helps
his
in our
impact.
system.
Yeah.
Without structure, it helps a lot. Like he can receive back to goal.
And to be honest, Camavinga's ability to receive the ball at any angle has really improved massively. You can
whole
tell
time
that.
he's been here. Yeah. He wasn't close to this good. Now he can receive as an attacking mid, and he actually makes the right choice.
And even his running into the box is very surprising how good it is. Like, let it be from a left back position or even as a pivot. When he sees that space, he's just always there as an option. And the fact that he's so good at keeping the ball just makes Camavinga a player that you want to have on pitch. Normally, I would say that your best double pivot, maybe on normal circumstances, would be Tchouaméni and Camavinga. Because I would love to have Tchouaméni sit in a little bit more and Camavinga just roaming forward a little bit more with, well, people aren't going to like this, but that would mean Valverde would be dropped. So, yeah, if you want to have the optimal setup of Madrid, which I don't think you can have, not with Lucas as right back, no center backs. So, yeah, I'm saying like optimal levels of Madrid. Probably the best that you get is a double pivot of Camavinga and Tchouaméni with Jude ahead of them. Vinicius, Mbappe, and Rodrigo.
You think Tchouaméni over Fede though? He doesn't cover.
Yeah, I would have him. I would have him over. But here we're talking about in a team that has a lot more structure.
So in this
Madrid
team,
does.
So this team won't have structure. Where do you think the final lineup ends up being? Like you said before the episode, there's a very Carlo way of solving things. So what is the Carlo way you think of solving it this season?
I mean, he kind of gave it away on last interview, right? He went like after the Milan game, the players spoke about where the problems lay. Carlo is very sitting down with the players, getting a feel of them, which I think every coach does. But Carlo puts more emphasis on how the players are feeling, on the roles that they have. So, and that's how he makes his decisions. But about the final 11, I'm not really sure. I just think that we're just going to see more of the same, really. You're going to get probably Camavinga back in midfield. You're going to have Valverde and Bellingham next to him. And you're going to have like Vinicius, Mbappe, and Rodrigo.
You think Rodrigo in the front three?
Yeah.
I think it'll be Vinny, Jude, Mbappe with Fede. But I think 3 out of the 4 of Fede, Camavinga, Ceballos, Modric would be the ones. And I think Tchouaméni becomes a center back in the big games. The one area where
I don't think we even have center backs
to
get Tchouaméni out of there.
We do have Raúl Asensio, and you could argue.
I really like that. I really like him. I like
you could argue he's not any worse than Tchouaméni at center back. And then the left back situation is so bad now that we saw Camavinga playing there last game.
Yeah, that I don't like.
Well, it's been 15 months since he came off the bench in El Clasico in the second half, and Ferland Mendy was trashed that game. We won. Jude scored, and then Camavinga, and then Mendy staked his claim in the lineup about 15 months ago. And it's so funny. Trophies or no trophies, we have this cycle for 3 years now where Camavinga and Mendy are battling for a left back spot.
It's just a shame because Fran had it, but Fran needed to drop that performance, and now he seemingly seems out again. Because Fran had that position, like Mendy started in a good.
Especially when Mendy got subbed off against Liverpool, giving away the penalty. I thought it was over for him. Yeah, we'll find out.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I saw that a lot of your followers, at least people who listen to this, knew me, so they know my opinion on Mendy. So I'm gonna refrain myself. But
Let's
only God knows how much I want that guy out of this club. Only God knows.
let's go to
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we I think as a fan base we are fed up with him. He's a good player,
Yeah.
just not like for Real Madrid standards. We expect more sometimes. He doesn't-
Decent squad player, I would say at best. If we
Yeah,
were to talk about
and
Mendy.
we've won titles with
Decent
him.
squad
He's
player.
he's played good defense in big matchups against Bernardo, but like, week to week we need our Marcelo energy. We need that big attacking fullback energy. We need Trent. I want to see Trent, and it's just funny though. We get Trent. We still need like a defensive left back, like a squad player type there. You never know. He might. Live.
Yeah, no, I'm not opposed to Mendy staying, but ultimately, I really hope that they are able to seal Alfonso Davis, as it was reported before. That would be a game changer.
So let's yes, that would be interesting. So let's get into we're gonna get into Arteta, Flick, Kompany, Gasperini. Let's start with
Okay.
I'd like to start with Arteta. He's not a potential Real Madrid coach for now, but
Yeah.
I think he's interesting because he's considered one of the best coaches in the game. He has a lot of influence, but he definitely has a clear flaw now in attacking football, like the way he coaches his attacking football. And I think even with injuries, now Saka's out, Sterling's out for a few weeks. We're going to really see. I know Odegaard's been out, but even with the injuries, there's been something just missing for me from their attack. And it's not just the players because like Bukayo Saka defends harder than any attacking talented player in the world.
That's why he's having these recurring injuries, to be honest.
Okay, so
Because he has
what
to
do you
run
think of
so much.
Mikel? What do you think of Mikel? As like, I forgot to do the sheet. I didn't start filling out the
yeah.
sheet. But
Yeah, don't worry.
what do you think of Mikel?
Arteta, don't like him. Don't like how they play. I guess good at getting results to a certain extent. Seeing players like Declan Rice regress so much, being painful. Mikel Merino, he's using him very weirdly. Like you get who for me was one of the best midfielders in La Liga, and you turn him into that. It's just, I don't know, like handling of midfielders, just not the best from him. I don't see anything spectacular there. I guess he's very good at coaching a press again, but a lot of people like to put a lot of emphasis on the importance of pressure. I don't take that away, but it shouldn't be end all be all in football. Just because you're able to coach a press, that doesn't mean that you're going to be top 2 manager, as they wanted to consider Arteta at some point. Not my cup of tea as a coach. If I was in charge, I would never get him. Literally, I just don't think he plays the football that you want to be played. I don't think he's able to coach midfielders as a midfielder himself, which is a little bit strange to me. This pursuit of very weird attackers that he keeps on signing, like all of the signings, Leandro Trossard made the most sense for me. But even then, sometimes I see Trossard playing like very wide, and I'm like, yeah, well, you didn't sign him for that. You signed him because how clinical he is. So he's just, I don't know. Arteta is a blend of good defensive coach, definitely good pressing coach, good off the ball coach. In terms of on the ball, I think he's average at best. And in terms of motivating his players and getting his players behind him, he looks good. But then again, we have a few stories with him not being all that nice with some of his players, especially the Aubameyang story. Therefore, you don't know how that translates in a club where he would have a lot less power. So if I had to give a final verdict on him, I would just say a no.
Interesting. Now, I largely agree in the sense that I don't think his problems managing the club are as big a deal. Like the Aubameyang, I think he actually was the right personality at the right time for Arsenal. And our last guest, Ali, made a good point. Arsenal just signed a lot of like top 4 level attackers 2 years ago. But when Arteta had coached them to being a contender. And so you have these Jesus, Zinchenko, Sterling, these like upper Europa, lower Champions League players who are playing for a team that expects to win the title. I think that is a major flaw, but I also agree that his build-up isn't the most fascinating. So on the screen,
Yeah, but like, don't get me wrong. Just to cut you off there, would we say that Chelsea have better attackers than Arsenal? I wouldn't say so.
let's look at Chelsea. That is a very good point. Chelsea.
That would be like Jadon Sancho, Jackson, Cole Palmer, and Noni Madueke / Pedro Neto. That would be kind of
No, they're not. Jackson and Plummer are great, but I wouldn't on paper call them even better than Saka and what Arsenal.
Yeah, but look at the way how Chelsea attack and compare it to the way how Arsenal attack. It's not always about the personnel. So it's also about.
Let's throw Maresca in, and I want you to help me fill out your portion of this right now, so we can show the viewers.
Okay, so Maresca.
Let's start with Arteta. Just negative offensive impact. Do you think he has a positive defensive impact, though?
Yes, positive defensive impact. Yeah.
I'll say positive defensive impact. I'll say neutral / I'll say slight negative on defensive impact for him. And then trend overall, you think Arteta's trending down as a coach or just neutral?
He's just neutral. I don't think he's improving massively, neither declining. It's just kind of where he is or where he's been for the past 2 seasons.
That makes sense. And I'm gonna say now, just to reiterate, Ancelotti. Well, how would you describe Arteta's style? Like, if you had to use a couple of words.
Arteta's style, very off-ball oriented and situational based, more than an actual team in full charge.
Yeah, I'll say off-ball oriented. Oriented.
Off-ball oriented would be best way to describe him.
And then for Alonso, what style would you put out there?
I mean, kind of the same, of the ball oriented, but I think Alonso is just straight up a better coach when it comes to utilizing his team. So his team on the ball has cleaner ideas.
Yeah. So how would you call his offensive impact? Neutral or slight positive or what?
I would say it's neutral or maybe positive. Yeah, because
neutral / slight positive.
Yeah, neutral / positive, because some of the sequences that you get with Florian Wirtz and the way how he incorporates his full wing backs, I guess, on that case, would be just something that for me would take it up to positive.
And then defensive plus positive, right?
Defensive, is it positive? I'm not sure. I would say neutral.
Neutral impact. Interesting. I think I would say pretty clearly positive from what you described, in that you say off ball, they're a pretty good team. They're
but once they get beat, there doesn't seem a lot of solutions there. That's why they keep on conceding.
Interesting. Okay. And trend, would you say he's neutral?
Trend, I would say neutral for now. For one of the half years, he's been neutral.
I said slightly up, just because not just accounting for the last 3 months, but the last 18. I would say he's overall, like, he's still a young coach, so he's probably getting better.
Yeah. That's a bit unfair of me. Yeah, fair enough. It's unfair of me to say neutral. Sure, it's definitely upward trend, I guess.
And then Ancelotti, you're gonna say, I said player-driven attacking, is what I said.
Player-driven. So basically, kind of like a more free role-oriented team offensively. Defensively, he suffers because he does that offensively.
Yep. So defensive impact negative.
I would say defensive impact this season be negative. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say negative, neutral to negative. I'd say slight negative, or just.
I would just say negative, because compared to last season, this team is nowhere near Rose Island.
And then I meant these are overall, not just season by season. Like overall, if you had to classify them in any environment, and then offensive impact positive, you'd say.
Okay. Sorry. I was going just by the season for Ancelotti himself. Defensive impact would be, I get, because Ancelotti can set up a good block.
He can.
If he focuses on that.
But it's only a few times a season. It's not like it's not 30 times a season.
Yeah. It's more like when he has to, rather than it's his go-to.
Mm-hmm.
So defensive impact, you would still classify it as negative, I guess, with Madrid.
Yep.
At the very least.
In general, I mean, if it's negative with us, is it going to get better anywhere else? I mean, I guess it does speak.
I mean,
to,
his Everton was defending pretty well.
okay.
I would like to think so.
And then
Because he
offensive,
put more emphasis there, but offensively they were very James Rodriguez reliant.
offensively, would you say positive or though overall?
Ancelotti?
Mhm.
Definitely positive. Yeah,
Definitely
definitely positive.
And then Trent, I said slightly up for him, and this is interesting. But I think the meta of European football, like yes, our defense isn't always the best. I do think teams have become very predictable in the way they approach big games. And I do think you have to give him the credit for the City leg last year, the beating Bayern. Like he figured it out enough for us to win those ties, and 2 years ago. So I think overall, if you told me before coming to Real that he would win all this, I would say that means he's at he fits the market and the conditions better, like trended up compared to what he was before.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, people wanted to pull their hairs out when they called Ancelotti backs, but we're sitting on 2 Champions Leagues now, so it has to be an upward trend, regardless.
I'm gonna call Alonso. Just putting it here, I said like that. I said he's off-ball oriented, structural but flexible. I see him as someone who can shift things, but I don't think maybe with this player quality he can't do more. Now, let's do Maresca. So what? I'm just checking the timestamp here. All right, let's go, Maresca. You start.
Okay, so I had a weird feeling with him at the start. Didn't really understand what he was trying to do. I think his ideas are cleaner now. You can immediately tell what his teams try to do proactively. They are very proactive as a team. They are starting to defend better. Not the best defensively. Chelsea have quite a lot of holes defensively, but also that can be attributed to the player quality there. They're very good on a ball, though. Like they have clear intentions on a ball. I would put Maresca ahead of somebody like Alonso or Arteta when it comes to sense of what he wants his team to do with the ball. That's why the offensive players are getting more maximized, I want to say. But then he again lacks player quality because Jadon Sancho it's his left winger and Pedro Neto / Noni Madueke are his right wingers. Therefore, he's a little bit limited on how far he can take the ceiling. That can play also to his advantage because it's a little bit easier to coach players like that, to get them what to do, rather than having them leaving it up to them. But Enzo Maresca, his name is Enzo, right?
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah.
I think that for the most part, he's doing a very good job. And yeah, we'll have to see from there. Another Pep disciple, if I'm not wrong.
So how would you call his offensive coaching? I'll call it, I would say it's like just offensive, ball-oriented.
Hello?
Yeah, I'm here. You hear me?
Sorry, I missed it. Cut.
No worries. So I was just saying, I'm calling him Maresca offensive, ball-oriented.
Yes,
proactive.
Coach.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So then, if we had to boil his like offensive and defensive impact down, how would you go about it? I say clear positive on offense and maybe
clear positive on the offense. Still want to say slightly bit negative on the defense side.
Okay. Slight negative. And then trend, I said clearly up. If there's a coach who's trended
clearly up. Yeah. It's him. Yeah. He's one of the hottest coaches right now.
Finally, something Chelsea did came off.
Yeah, finally.
Right.
Only took $1 billion and like 4 coaches.
For sure. Next, we're going to go for a fun one. Hansi Flick. Hansi Flick. And we have more on the way. I'm going to just put the pipeline.
I know.
Company's coming up, guys.
So where do I start here? Okay, so a lot of people can attribute this as I don't like Hansi Flick because of his Barcelona. No, I don't like Hansi Flick because of his Bayern Munich, and I don't like him because of his Germany. I never rated the guy. I don't think
me too.
all that. So I don't know why people are shocked and are going like jealous When Xavi was replaced, as a Madridista, I was fearing they're going to go much higher than Flick. So when they hired Flick, I'm like, okay, we're good for the moment. I knew that Flick was going to run the team out of the energy by this point. Go back to my tweets of August. You'll hear the same thing that I'll say
Me
here
too.
again.
We can both, if you want, after you talk, just bring up a tweet. I'll bring up a tweet too, because I was saying the same thing you were. We were saying the exact same thing.
Yeah, like the amount of intensive running, because a lot of people, like even in group chats that I'm in, sometimes they go like, oh, look at the distance covered. I'm like, well, I don't care about the distance covered. I care more about the intensity of the runs. And his teams just can't put the foot of gas at any moment. As you saw against Atleti, for example, a lot of people attributed it as luck. Well, no, this team has reached a point where they're mentally exhausted because they're physically exhausted. Therefore, they're missing more chances. They're giving away the ball more cheaply. And this offside trap has already been found out, which is very clear. So now they're keeping a deeper line to try and avoid that. And for that reason, they're pressing, the attacking players, I want to say pressing, because even the midfielders push up a lot. They have even more ground to cover. Therefore, they're not really coming at anything positive, regardless of what Flick tries to do, because those are the ceiling of him as a coach. This is Hansi Flick on a nutshell. There is no difference between what you're seeing right now, what you would see at his Bayern. The treble that he won with Bayern, nicely enough, he won it by bullying teams physically, which props to him for getting his team.
And the pandemic honestly saved him, right, that season? Because he coached
that team just...
He only coached 4 months in a row, November to March, and then he got a break. He can't coach a team 8 to 10 months in a row without injuring half the team.
Yeah. And also without running them to the ground, which is like a big thing. Even if they're not picking up injuries every week, those players are feeling the exhaustion mentally. That's why I drew parallels to when Xavi first came in as Barca coach. It was very similar thing. He just put a lot of high energy, high intensive players to try and gain some results, which he did. But on hindsight, yes, Xavi won the La Liga the second season, but I'll stick on my idea that Ancelotti gifted that league more than Xavi won the league. I just don't see anything in particular special about him outside of being able to get the team very good physically for 2 to 3 months before he runs them to the ground, which is what we're seeing right now.
So clear. How would you describe his style if you had to in a nutshell, and like just fill these out?
Very off the ball oriented, because on the ball there is pretty much barely anything on that team. Very off ball oriented. So basically turnover oriented team, I would say.
That makes sense. Off ball turnover based team for sure. It's a bit Jurgen Klopp.
Yeah, it's a bit like that, except that it's kind of like, no pun intended, on steroids, but on the bad side of it.
Yes, Jurgen burns his players out. This does the same thing on a much faster time scale. It's just
Jurgen takes at least 2 seasons to get where Flick gets in like 3 months.
For sure. So, Bielsa was the only other one who did this. Like
like this for me, it's a little bit of like a player's abuse, if I'm being honest.
For sure. And so positive offensive impact, but negative defensive impact, would you say pretty clearly? Like on the overall of it, he adds more goals.
On the overall, he's put in more goals, but let's keep in mind the chances that they were converting were never at sustainable pace. So would you call that I would say positive in sense of they still were able to do it, but kind of on offensive, defensively negative without any doubt.
How about Trent? So this is a hard one for me because it ties into what you were saying. If I could say trend at the end. Well, so I was going to say the trend after his second season at Bayern was clearly negative. Whatever he did there wasn't working. And then at Germany, it became more negative. Like I think
because he had less time. Players were more tired because of club football, so it was always going to be looking even worse.
Interesting. So would you say neutral or a slight negative now? So from that Germany low point, I would say up.
From the Germany to Barca, what he did with Barca, positive,
but since the start
overall, like I would say, basically like the same, the usual.
right.
That's how I would answer it. The usual.
And that's
the
where
highs and the lows are very similar.
And that's where I would say neutral or even slight negative, in the sense that I think with each job, people are going to realize what he really is. Like, I'm surprised people don't realize. And the extent to which people thought that, like, the best start in Barcelona history by XG or whatever, with Rafinha was having better numbers than Messi. Did people look at that and think it's a good thing? Like, that's sustainable? I mean, I know his system's good, but that didn't feel real.
I mean, they literally have worse underlying defensive numbers than Valencia, who are sitting 19th on the league right now. So I don't know what you guys expect. Yeah, it's very easy to blame Ter Stegen or whoever, or Inaki Peña if you want, for him not sweeping like 10 balls a game, which is very unrealistic to expect out of goalkeeper. Just think of the mental strain that it puts on the goalkeeper to be able to sweep those. So
what about Kompany?
Again,
let's move to Kompany. We know Flick.
Okay, Kompany. His Burnley. I mean, he relegated them, right? Yeah, he relegated them, but the ideas were there, which presumably that's where Bayern Munich stepped in and took him. Compared to the previous two coaches of Bayern, huge downgrade. I still don't think Kompany knows what he's trying to do, really. I would say it's slightly unlucky with the Kane injury, and all be all, you should not be reliant on that. I don't really know about him. Like, I'm very neutral. I don't think he's a very good coach. So if you want to fill out the trend, you can go with positive, because he went from Burnley to Bayern Munich. It's positive trend. Offensively, I want to say Bayern attack good. So I'll give him that. There are some good combinations. They tighten up the pitch. Offensively, Bayern attack good. Defensively, horrible. So huge negative. On the ball, the style would be a blend, I guess, of the ball work that's done by the players, and also like some on the ball strategies. So the style would be like a mix, a blend.
Yeah, a mix of the more Alonso or the Flick, the off ball runs, the coordination, or the more slowed down. I think he is a positive attacking coach. I think for the same reason he got Burnley relegated, like an idiot playing that way. But like, I don't think he cared about Burnley. Like, and I think this is a problem more coaches are running, and more small teams are running.
Yeah, but I don't agree with the coach that are not flexible to the situation.
Oh, no, for sure. But I mean, the problem is right now coaches are going to these smaller teams and they want a job at a big team, so they don't care if their style is a mismatch. They just care about showing the big teams, hey, we can do this with worse players.
Basically, and it's working. As sad as it is, it's working.
Kompany. Yeah, you got hired by Bayern after relegating Burnley. Like, this is the most like woke nonsense you could say would have ever happened. But the flip side is like, yes, it's like a meme, but I get it in that the job coaching a top team fundamentally is less about organizing the defense, more about making sure the attack is allowed to express itself without ruining
the talent. The talent is just at show and disposal at all
and
times.
He doesn't seem as extreme as Flick so far. Like, he won't run them.
No, he's not. He's not as extreme as Flick, definitely.
Okay. Just wanted to double check we're on the same page there.
That's
a good start with him. Let's go. I'd like to go Gasperini. We might do one or two more, but let's do Gasperini. Yeah, let's get going.
One of my all-time favorite coaches. I mean, this guy has got 10 generations now of players, and there's still more innovation coming into that team. They're leading Serie A right now. Very happy for him. Offensively, if you want to fill out the chart, definitely a positive. They attack relentlessly. That three at the back is pretty good defensively, even though the pivots, historically, his pivots struggled. So I don't know if I would give him a positive defensive impact, because when your midfield gets broken as often as his teams do, then you're going to run into a lot of problems. That man-to-man press is just beautiful. My favorite one to watch. Impact or trend of Gasperini? Well, it's weird to say for somebody that's been in the game for so long, but it's definitely positive. As I said again, as it currently stands at the day of the recording, he's leading Serie A. That's a big thing, especially given, I mean, they have done some good signings, but Shad Kolasinac is still playing as a left-sided center back for them. So I don't know, like, if you can discredit it because they signed Charles de Ketelaere, or he was able to kind of maximize the talent at disposal with Mario Retegui, for example, who I think is leading Serie A for goals scored. So normally Gasperini on a chart would be offensive output very high. Defensively, leaves a lot to be desired. It's good, but leaves a lot to be desired. It comes with the style. It's part of the problem. Pressing, my favorite one to watch, without any doubt. The trend, it would definitely be upward, especially if he's able to somehow win Serie A while competing on the Champions League to at least some certain levels.
Definitely.
Not win it, of course.
Let's see. There's a couple more I want to do in this rapid fire round. I guess we can keep since we're going fast. One is Luis Enrique.
Offensively negative, defensively negative, on the ball negative, off the ball negative, team management negative. To be honest, should be taken away from football, if I'm being honest.
So I would love to talk about this guy because he's like a caricature of Guardiola. He is the caricature of Guardiola we want to call Guardiola. He is the real meme. If Guardiola does something that we criticize, ultimately it is more functional. Enrique does it for the same reason, but it never works functionally ever. It just becomes the caricature that we try to pretend Pep is. But Pep, no matter what you pretend, he's getting the results. Enrique is passing side to side with Mbappe and getting eliminated by Dortmund last year. That's what I remember. Okay, let's talk about it. Though. Let's go with.
You know what hurts me? We have Enrique here because of that treble with Barcelona, right?
And they look good
too. But that treble never happens if Ancelotti just manages the team's load better throughout the season. We were the better team, and you could argue they had the better players at that time. You could argue. I mean, Messi, Neymar, and Suarez.
I think they had the better front three, but our squad was actually better. I think they're in isolation because Messi and Neymar.
Our squad was very short, though. Like, we brought Silva like in January. The squad was very short. 11 for 11, Madrid was better, fully fit. But we did show that on the first El Clasico, though. And even second El Clasico, we should have never lost.
Until we got tired.
Yeah.
When Modric played his first game in months and he got tired.
Yeah, and he got tired, and that's when we lost control of the game. We conceded to a Matthew header. It's just, it was really annoying, the goal that Suarez scored. They were just not better than Madrid. And if Casillas, sorry, legend and everything, but if he doesn't do what he did against Juve, especially on that Morata goal, I would think we beat them in a final. Wow. Probably don't win the league because, not probably, we don't win the league, but Modric would have been back by the final. And we were already better in both El Clásicos. I know that we lost one, but as I said, I'm looking beyond results. That would have been a fully fit Modric for the final. At least I would have liked to believe. So Ronaldo would have been a bit more fresh. Bale would have probably been more fresh. Benzema too. Cruz was having a Cruz type of season, really consistent throughout all his Madrid career, without any doubt. So we would have won that final that Juventus lost, and that's really what hurts looking back on that season.
So when we look back on Enrique, that team is still the best job he did, and it's progressively gotten worse. With each season, he's done a worse job in his coaching career.
Yeah.
You could say
it's only getting worse.
And Spain, he did a good job at the Euros, botched the World Cup, kind of went back to what happened with Fernando Hierro in 2018, just sideways passing. And then And PSG, yeah, it's definitely gotten. It was really bad last season. Shouldn't have lost to Dortmund with those players. Relegated Mbappe to some. I don't know what he was doing with Mbappe, but that was I feel like he contributed to Mbappe's funk at the start of the season by coaching like good things out of him. Honestly, like that's what I remember when we watched the Dortmund tie was embarrassing. It's like he's scared to like take a guy on because of the coach. Like he's just
and also like even against Barca, he was putting Mbappe at left wing, then just telling him to go inside like 10 minutes into the game. Mbappe then is just like confused, like where do I go?
Yes, and so how would you describe Enrique's style? I said positional perfectionist. Like
positional perfectionist. Yes, but only negative sense, not on the positive sense.
Perfectionist to a fault. For sure. I would say like no matter in whatever sense, like that's just what he is. He's obsessed with that one aspect of the game. And then offensive, I said neutral / negative. I'd say just
negative. I would just say negative.
Yeah. And then I actually would argue he has a positive defensive impact for all the same reasons we put.
I don't think so.
You don't think so? I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna keep it there in the sense that
I understand where you're coming from, but I don't think his teams defend as much as well as they should, considering the number, considering how much possession they have, which pretty much the whole point of having that much possession is having less defense to do. So I would still classify it as negative, considering that they concede a lot of chances for a team with 70% of the ball.
Yep. Okay. Well, Enrique, we're gonna skip Guardiola because that's just I mean,
it's still Pep,
being made about it right now, huh?
Yeah, it's still Pep, right? Like
he's can go.
The only thing that you can do right now is that he's on downward trend. Which guess what? Give it a month, and everybody's gonna flip their opinions on Pep again.
Let's quickfire him. Let's quickfire him. What is let me just get this timestamp 101:43. 101:30 Pep. Let's just do a quick fire. I will agree the trend. I when you said the trend is down, that's when I was like, okay, you know what? I'll just say slightly down. And it's because I just want to point out for about 3 seasons, his offensive coaching has slowly been suffering, and his defensive coaching has been about the same, like standard good.
I think it's improved. Defensively, they have improved. That's why they won the Champions League. But offensively, they gotten worse. So pick your poison type of deal.
That makes sense. So positional perfectionist. And then I would say offensive impact. I would say
it's neutral. I would say positive.
Okay.
They still score a shitload of goals.
I'm gonna go with neutral, and then I'm gonna say defensive impact, very high positive. Neutral / slight plus. And you go with positive offensive. Where would you go defensive?
Positive, both.
Positive.
For me, both are positive. Yeah.
I think overall, I'm with you. I think I would argue on the offensive side, he's went from a clear to a slight positive with the Grealish situation and all that.
Yeah, but we also have to look at where football is and what Pep wants to be, right? So normally it would have been a Lucho, but he's not really. His teams can still score 3, 4, 5 without any problem.
For sure. They can turn it on, and that's what was interesting the last 2 years.
And also his player quality offensively is just not there. Is it anymore? Like De Bruyne is not De Bruyne anymore. Foden is really underperforming. Bernardo, well, Pep has run him to the ground. Jeremy Doku, I don't know what they were thinking. Savinho, well, as I said last season, overhyped, not that great either.
I do think Doku is good, but they haven't replaced De Bruyne, and I think Foden is overrated.
I don't think Doku is good though. Like just because he's able to dribble past a player just doesn't make him good, right? There are a lot more tandems that come to it, which is decision making, knowing when to release the ball, which was my biggest fear with like a 19 years old Vinicius Junior. Is he gonna learn that? But here he is, like best player in the world, undisputedly. And watch Doku. Like
for sure. And that's where I feel they have started just seeing they've catered very aggressively to Pep, and Pep has been like, I'll keep the defense good, just get me guys who play a specific role. He's okay with these specific players instead of going back to what they did before where they said Bernardo, he played in multiple positions. He's just
there's also the problem of like that midfield, right? Kovacic, Mateus Nunes, Ilkay Gundogan. It's just dead. Like
How
I
would you
can't fully put it on Pep.
how would you describe his style before we conclude him?
Oh, Pep has evolved a lot as a coach. Dominant, I guess, on every sense.
I still call him
He
positional
would be.
perfectionist, just not in a negative way. Like he's just the only one
Yeah,
who's ever achieved it in any way.
yeah, but I would still say more of like he puts more emphasis on dominance, like physical proficiency, the fouls that they concede consistently.
Spatial
He,
dominance.
yeah, yeah,
Pure spatial
yeah,
dominance. Yeah. I'll add that. Space obsessed. That's always been him. Space
yeah,
obsessed.
yeah,
And yeah, just always playing the game in the other team's half. Then you don't have to worry about
yeah,
whether you have a chance. Yeah.
yeah,
I think this is quite a good list. I think one thing that's really cool, I think if you go look through all our columns, very hard or almost impossible to be plus in defensive and offensive columns. You're always sacrificing something.
yeah, yeah. You're having to give up one thing for the other, basically.
And I think that's cool. Like here, like we have Ancelotti, positive, slight negative, positive, positive. You have slight positive, neutral, negative, positive. I think if you look here, Alonso is, I guess you're a little lower on him, but he's the only one who's positive in both columns, I believe. In any or not, I guess you have some cases of positive, neutral. Let me see, positive. It's Guardiola, and then Alonso still shows up like right there with anyone. He has no negatives, which is very rare, right?
Yeah, it's very rare, especially considering how young he is as a coach, right? But ultimately, when I look at it, like I don't like being neutral or good in both ways because at some point you're going to come again at the sacrificing one thing for the other. So that's why I'm on the fence with Alonso because I don't know what's going to happen once he has to make that decision.
That makes sense, and that's exactly where I am secretly optimistic, just quietly optimistic that he makes those choices impeccably, like say Carlo did last season. I think everybody, like the way the City second leg, Carlo's like, okay, Vinny, you sit back with the team even if we can't score. I think those like split decisions of when to be a little more attacking or defensive, if he has a good framework from within which he's operating, where he won't make. I think he'll learn from his mistakes quickly, and he won't be too repetitive early on because his playing career is just very different. Like, how many coaches come into coaching with his background of like so many shapes? Like, because I think he's the guy who really saw like the superstars of Real Madrid be humble and sit back to beat Barcelona and Guardiola, and so Zidane did that too. And I feel like Zidane's another case where he doesn't make the wrong choice.
I mean, if you were making a column for Zidane, he would have been neutral at worst at everything, literally.
Yes, for sure. Let's do Zidane. Let's throw Zidane into this.
Yeah, we can do Zidane on this.
Right, this is a good. I'd say so. I'm gonna go second spell on. First spell, rookie coach didn't know what he was doing. I'm gonna coach doesn't exist. He doesn't exist anymore. That person doesn't exist. He left with the 3P, and so. Defensive.
So we're going Zidane second stint, basically.
Yes, second stint onwards.
Defensively, better than Arteta is right now. So huge highs.
Huge positive, interesting. Yeah, I would say very clear positive. And then offensive, I'm going to go neutral. I don't think he was a big plus.
Offensive, I would maybe go negative on the second stint, but you could also attribute that to the player quality. But then again, Ancelotti came in and Vinicius Junior was looking like
he did, but Vinny had Vinny had a couple years of working with a personal trainer, and also like you could argue that Vinny needed.
Yeah, but it's just a couple of months difference, you know. Like I'm not sure about like. If Vinicius would have been Vinicius with Zidane. I'm going to say that. Right now, Zidane came, yeah, he would, because Vini's that good now. But if it wasn't for Ancelotti coming in, yeah, I don't see that happening. I don't see that transformation happening.
For Vinny, right? Yeah.
For Vinny, yeah.
Yeah, and that's why, and also the same with Jude's first season. That's why, like, I would attribute that more to Carlo just being a clear positive impact.
Yeah. Yeah, Zidane offensively, I don't know, like very
So how would
overly
you?
reliant on Benzema's finishing and crossing. I mean, I know that it was a meme, but I do understand where Zidane came from. Imagine having Ramos, Benzema, Casemiro, these guys camp in the box. Why wouldn't you cross the ball? But it felt that sometimes when it got stale, like even when we lost La Liga in 2020-21, it came after like 2-0 draws. I think it was Betis and Getafe back to back, where we faced the same problem both games. Therefore, solution finding offensively left to be desired. But maybe you could, but then it's his 3P team though. So if we want to include that, then you would say neutral on the offensive side. But defensively, definitely you would go with highly positive. Like
Yeah, I'm gonna
arguably
say
the best defensive coach out of all the guys that we have on the list.
interesting. Yeah, I think he's up there with. I think the top defensive coaches on the list are. I'm not gonna include Enrique just because we've established the trade-off is
Yeah.
easiest Enrique's, but I mean, Zidane, Guardiola, I think Alonso and Arteta are the four best defensive coaches here.
Yeah,
And
the four best, you would say, yes.
yes, and Arteta is out of those. It feels like Arteta sacrifices the most offense of the four to achieve what he wants.
Yeah, Zidane kind of did the same, but
With worse players, that it was a weird spell. Like, we weren't buying players. Hazard got hurt.
yeah, it was a weird spell because if that Hazard injury never happened, that team might have looked completely different.
We shredded Tuchel. We shredded Tuchel with Hazard on the we cooked him.
Yeah.
He had no answer,
Yeah.
and then Hazard got hurt. Then they equalized only after that. After Hazard came off the pitch, and we lost our
So
momentum.
I don't know. Like I don't know. It's very hard to judge. I feel that the job that he did with Vini was pretty poor. But outside of Vini, it might be a Vini bias, to be honest, speaking here. But outside of Vini, it was pretty decent. Benzema was scoring at very consistent rate.
It's nuanced. It's nuanced because
Yeah.
there are a couple, I guess like I want to ask you about his style, but like I think we've established where you think he is as an offensive coach. But one nuance I want to add is just with Vinny, at that time, even if Vinny was, the problem is if Vinny was 20% better, it didn't justify shifting to play the way Carlo did the year after. You needed Vinny to be what Vinny became under Carlo to justify that. And so
yeah, but Vinny became that like 3 weeks with Carlo. So it's like
it's not just 3 weeks. It's also a preseason.
Yeah, it is that, but it's also more like of the style, of the freedom that Vini was given. Therefore, it builds on his confidence, and you go from there instead of locking him in like Zidane did. Because Zidane just didn't have enough faith on Vinicius, same way that Ancelotti did at the very least.
Well, I just mean like if you look at the gap between the teams was really small considering the 60 injuries. Real Madrid 2021, 84 points.
Yeah.
Real Madrid 2022, 86 points, and we won the league. It was a harder league, you could argue. And then
I mean those are the two draws that I mentioned. Basically, the Betis and Getafe draw, which came back to back, that cost us the league. Don't forget that the league was lost literally on Luis Suarez being gifted a free goal for Atleti, literally on the 80th minute. So we're not getting into conspiracies here, but yeah.
So, but my point with that is, I'm very much willing to give. I think if you gave Zidane another run at different wingers in a different context, as we saw with Hazard, glimpses.
Right now, he would be more offensive oriented.
Because the team is settled. He doesn't need to coach up Vinny. Vinny makes the decisions. Even in a Zidane system, Vinny would make the right choices.
Right now, I wouldn't be fearing if Zidane came if something happens to Vinny, because Zidane knows quality. Zidane understands quality more than anything else.
And I would say the main difference again with Zidane would be, I think we would maybe not create as much, but he would definitely have, like, we wouldn't give up as many stupid crosses in the box.
I actually think that we would create just as much with Zidane, and we would have more of the ball.
You think we'd just be a better team under him? You think
we would? I think that like if you had to switch, I think that Carlo has done kind of like the job for Zidane to set the team up.
The same way Zidane did last time.
Yeah, the same way how Zidane just matured, like players like Militao, who played the key part on that Champions League win.
Vinicius, no, that makes sense. He slowly grew the team,
Yeah.
had a foundation where Carlo could change it, which we
Yeah,
didn't see.
but
now it's obvious that Carlo has set
Yeah.
up. What style do you give Zidane?
Okay, Zidane is so weird because Zidane likes to have the ball. That's for sure. He likes to have the ball. He likes to be more dominant, but he's not as obsessive, or that doesn't matter to him as much as it would to Pep or Lucio.
I called it spatial dominance with pragmatism.
Yeah,
I called it.
Yeah, that would be the best way to describe it. Yeah, I would be on that too. 100%.
I'll just put it in your column to use your words. Less obsessed spatial dominance.
Yeah.
Still spatial dominance, just not as superlatively obsessed.
Yeah.
I agree. So we've gotten through, how many coaches is here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10 coaches today. Zidane,
Nice.
Guardiola, Enrique, Gasperini, Kompany, Flick, Maresca, Arteta, Alonso, Ancelotti. I guess we'll start closing out here. Any closing thoughts here?
I wanted to ask you, out of all these coaches that we have, would you have picked? Your choice.
Who's the best coach here or best coach here?
No, for Madrid. If you had to pick. Ancelotti is there too, by the way, on the list. So you can say Ancelotti.
It's tough for me. I'm leaning towards, I think the life cycle of a coach is limited. I won't go with Ancelotti because I think even if they figure it out now, they need more going on. So I would go with number one. I want to see Alonso. I want to try him. It's my curiosity. I don't see enough to say that Alonso will be much worse than Zidane. Our players are so good that it doesn't matter is another thing. Yeah. So Alonso, Zidane, 1 and 2. I think it doesn't matter which of those two are our next two coaches. We have a golden era with one or the other. And honestly, probably both back to back. Just a question of who's first. If I had to pick one first, I go with Alonso because he's young. I don't want to be in a situation.
You go with Alonso over Zidane.
Alonso, because Zidane won't go to anyone. We can get him when we want, except France. But I guess there's the risk. Like with Zidane, if he's at France, okay, boom, 6 years gone, maybe longer, 8 years, maybe you lose a decade.
Yeah, probably longer. Yeah,
but Alonso you also lose 3-4 years with Alonso at a club, and I think Alonso seems like he wants to coach. Zidane seems like he wants to coach France or Real Madrid. Alonso seems like
France or Real Madrid.
So I'm more worried about the 3-4 years at Liverpool or wherever with Alonso. I know it's not Liverpool, Slot's good, but I'm more worried about Bayern getting him and him dealing with that. I want to see, because I also have another belief, which is that a young coach has also an energy to him that you never get back once they lose big games and they become wary. And they lose this like fresh energy that they bring, like the hairs get gray. I want to see Alonso gray his hairs here, not for Liverpool or Bayern. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand. It's more of like the fear of missing out on him rather than he would be the perfect guy right now.
And the other thing is at worst he's the I see maybe second or third best option. Like he's not going to be a top out of the ones we'll go for. Considering we're not getting Areola, we're not going for Michel.
No, we're not going there. We just went through this list of coaches who are top tier right now.
And so in that sense, I'll go with these. I wouldn't get Tuchel for the same reason I wouldn't get Arteta at Real Madrid. It's not a Real Madrid.
Same. And I also think that those coaches with very strict resumes, I want to say, just aren't gonna work out. Like we saw it with Benitez, and that started a very huge downward trend for Rafa Benitez, more than for Madrid, because Madrid recovered, but Benitez never did.
The only argument for Zidane here is the big argument, in my opinion, is he's off a break. Like, man, he's fresh, and he sounds like he would coach us, and he knows it's not. He knows he can't call the shot, but he's put his name in the hat again.
I would love to know what his ideas would be. Like if I could pick something right now to do, it would be to kind of sit with Zidane for like 3 hours and just ask him, what would you do? Like with this team.
For sure.
I would love to know because as we have seen, he's been a lot at the Bernabeu. He's been watching the team a lot. So I would love to know like where he's picking up the problems and how he would solve them.
Yeah,
so
that would be
that would have been like a nice conversation to have because keep in mind Zidane is very adaptive as a coach too. Like he doesn't really care for as long as he wins. right? He can dominate you for 90 minutes, or he can let you have the ball and just suffocate your space so you have nowhere to go and just hit you. So, like Zidane has his mistakes as a coach, which Pep was kind of his kryptonite, if I'm being honest.
He was,
But
because Pep essentially dominates space better than him. And so Zidane was doing a milquetoast version in those matchups. And I agree, because like Carlos beaten Pep by pretty much saying, I don't care to play the way you do. We'll make it a random game. And he beats him with randomness, which is
I'm just gonna turn it into chaos. You can't control chaos, and therefore that's why Ancelotti wins.
not only do you not
Those
control
ties.
chaos, you fear the chaos. So you flip it on City, where they're playing scared most of the time. Against Zidane, under Zidane, we aren't taking enough risks in possession to make City scared. We aren't trying things that are outside the, hey, this pass is on, you can do this triangle, and then City do it. Under Ancelotti, it's like, hey, they're suffocating us, go long to Vinny. Zidane didn't do that.
Yeah, exactly. Zidane didn't know, like, actually Zidane did it on the first tie at Bernabeu in 2020-21 season, where Vini assists Isco, right? And then he just made the mistake of taking Vini out for Bale, and we know the story from there. But
wait, was that the moment? Was it not Ramos making a mistake? Was that really the turning point? The
moment when Vini was taken off, they started suffocating us. Whether Ramos makes a mistake or not doesn't really change the outcome, in my opinion. It would have been just lucky for us.
I blacked that memory out of my game. Like I that's one of the few.
That was such a good performance, though. Like that was such a good pressing performance, to the point where you would see Ederson just going long and passing the ball to, who was in goal for us that game? Was it Navas or Courtois?
Courtois.
I think Courtois. Yeah, Courtois. So Ederson had no choices but to pass the ball to Courtois about like 10 times on that first half. And our goal felt just inevitable. Like Benzema came close a couple of times, and then Vini found. What did Benzema come? Yeah, Benzema played. Yeah, it was Vini, Benzema, and Isco front three.
I was so shocked.
It was a diamond.
When Vini squared to Isco, I was so shocked. I was just like, he pulled it off. Like, they haven't created shit, and we're up at home. But I do. Even the second leg, I would say, outside the mistake,
second leg was a mess up.
It was a mess up, but I think the problem is, again, he like the first 40 minutes is decent. Maybe like we were bad, and then we equalized, and then from there he should have leaned into chaos, and he's too scared. He's afraid.
And also we had Hazard, who looked like he couldn't play on the left wing, and he didn't give Vini a single minute that game, which still shocks me to this day.
Yeah, and I mean,
I think he left Valverde on the bench too, which was a weird choice, because he went with Cruz, Modric, and Casemiro, right?
And Rodrigo.
No, it was what was Zidane's lineup for the second leg? I think it was
Rodrigo, Vini, Benzema up front.
Courtois, Varane, Nacho, Marcelo, and Carvajal, if I'm not wrong, or Lucas. I'm not sure. Carvalho might have been injured. I don't remember. I think it was KCM, as we like to call them. And then it was Hazard, Benzema, and Rodrigo. And Rodrigo made the goal. I still remember the goal, because he comes in from the right side, as a right winger.
Yep. He created the goal.
But Hazard looked like an ex-professional footballer, to be honest. I don't know why I was having hopes on Hazard ever turning it around.
I mean, I get why Zidane did too. You know, he staked his second spell on that signing working, and he had to try it. And Hazard promised a lot. But Hazard gave a lot of PR, and there were glimpses when he'd go score a goal, and you'd be like, you'd think you're just.
Is this back? Yeah. I understand, right? I mean, it was the pure quality that Hazard had, right, as a footballer, but his legs were gone, and I think Zidane should have accepted that fact. Because I refuse to believe that Zidane wasn't saying that, okay, this guy's legs are just not there anymore. I have fresher legs than Vinicius. I think normally you kind of want to, I like to put things on a scale. And if I had to put things on a scale for that game in particular, like Champions League quarterfinals, right? Yeah, I think it was the quarters, if I'm not wrong, or round of 16.
Round of 16. in 2020.
Yeah, I'm not sure which round it was. Like, I would have put like all my eggs on like a 19, 20 years old player rather than somebody that just can't run.
That makes sense.
If I was in his position, but yeah.
I just remember it was tricky. I think ultimately the problem is those games were presented as, okay, like all season he's been trying, like this might be the one. And with Hazard, it wasn't. I think the last season Zidane was here was the last one where he had any credit left, and you had to give him one last shot. Just the money into the signing. It's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, even Ancelotti started the season with Hazard, but it took like 3 weeks and done.
It did. It took 3 weeks, and it took Vinny. Like, honestly, if Vinny doesn't make it just 3 that one game, he comes on immediately and doesn't score assists, doesn't score an assist. Then it might have been more Hazard, because Ancelotti isn't one to hierarchy that quickly.
I mean, Hazard started with Ancelotti. Sorry, started with Hazard, Bale, and Benzema.
Yeah.
That was the front three the first game. So I mean, funny enough, none of them are here now, and only Benzema was good out of the three. So yeah.
Well, I think this is a good moment to wrap it up. We have this massive I'll just add it back to this stage as we wrap up. We have this massive, like, condensed summary of our thoughts that I will post on Twitter on the post. This will be shared. Locante, thank you for coming on again. It's been fun. If you had to pick
thank you for having me.
You picked Zidane, right? I went with Alonso. You went with Zidane.
Out of the list, yes, I picked Zidane.
Yep. Well, I hope you all enjoy it. I thought that was a really cool look at all the different coaches. And Locante, I'm sure we'll have you back sometime in the spring.
Yeah, looking forward, as always. Thank you again. It was a pleasure to be here, as always. And that's it, really. And again, I want to thank everybody for the massive support in the comment section. I genuinely didn't expect that. It really felt refreshing.
Yeah,
it's a nice community. I love it.
We haven't gotten a reaction like that in a while. I guess were you streaming a lot before? Because we haven't. I was like, it just read like someone whose content had disappeared and they want it, you know?
Yeah. I wasn't really streaming, but I used to make content on Madrid. I had like maybe 4K subscribers or something like that. I used to make content on Madrid, but life happened, so I had to move away from that. So yeah.
Totally. Well, we'll definitely have you back on the show more, and I'm sure this is just the beginning of you being on Managing Madrid. Thank you, everyone.